Right, let's crack on. Madeleine McCann update. Obviously, it's a story that I feel very invested in. I've made 2 documentaries. I've encountered most of the people at the heart of the story. And you may have noticed a significant amount of media coverage this week regarding Madeleine McCann. Well, that's because it's the 15th anniversary, May the 3rd, since she was reported missing during a family holiday in Praia da Luz in Portugal. There have been several documentaries made this week, one being Mark Williams Thomas on Channel 4, still following the abduction theory, but continuing the idea that Madeleine McCann wandered out of the apartment and was picked up. I don't believe it, not for a second. Then, of course, we've had fame-hungry German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters. He's still determined to be the man who jails the killer of Madeleine McCann, and he's failing miserably. He gave an interview with Sandra Felgara. Sandra became quite well known. She's a journalist in Portugal. She became quite well known for being the journalist who asked Kate and Jerry McCann about the enhanced victim recovery dogs that had gone into the apartment and gone in various other places, including their car, and had alerted. And Jerry had famously said to her, ask the dog, Sandra. Well, since then, Sandra Felgara seems to have had somewhat of a turnaround. And rather than being questioned of the narrative, she seems to be not only all embracing of it, but promoting it and furthering it. And it was interesting because she's now been accused by Christian Bruckner, who is obviously their main suspect and has been made arguido in Portugal. And Christian Bruckner's lawyer has, come out and said bullshit about fibers being from Madeleine's pajamas found inside Christian Bruckner's van. And this comes about after a TV interview featuring Hans Wolters being interviewed by Sandra, 15 years to the day, and they suddenly have new evidence. It's so amazing the way this works, isn't it? Just in time for a TV special, new evidence. Anyway, it's no such thing, as you know. And as I say, Bruckner's lawyer has blasted it as B-shit. Actually, probably bull was the less offensive of those 2 that I just chose to censor. So, you know, whatever. Sandra Felgara had asked Mr. Wolters in the interview, is it true that you found something belonging to Madeleine in the caravan of Christian Bruckner? You can't deny it, can you? And he replied, I don't want to deny it. But the suspect has not yet been informed. Now, obviously, not obviously, but under German law, details of a police investigation can't be revealed until a suspect and their lawyers have been given full details. The case can then be made public. Well, I've been talking with a number of people over the last few days, and several of them ex-police and a couple of current serving police, and they say this is beyond ridiculous now. We're talking about a level of subjudice that would never see Christian Bruckner convicted, even if he was guilty, which most people don't believe for a second he is. I mean, people have been extremely critical about what Hans Wolters has been saying, what Sandra Felgara has sort of promoted. And it turns out there were no fibers found in the van. And in fact, the message from Christian Bruckner's lawyer is, due to the diverse press coverage of allegedly found traces in a vehicle of my client, I consulted the Braunschweig public prosecutor's office. It is misinformation that was spread by a Portuguese journalist. And indeed, it appears it was. Peter Hyatt, fantastic statement analyst. I was talking to him yesterday, and I said I wanted to quote some of his tweets. And one of them was, if fibers from a kidnapped child's pajamas were found at a paedophile's property, the evidence would be preserved for court and kept until discovery, not used for a TV appearance. My thoughts exactly, Peter. And this week, I've been contacted by a researcher on the McCann hashtag who's out in Praia da Luz, been giving me updates. The circus came to town this week. Obviously, the media rolled up for their annual visit to Praia da Luz to capture the place that Madeleine McCann was reported missing from, world's most famous missing child. Obviously, there's work underway at Robert Murat, a former suspect, his home. Construction work, it's being torn down, replaced with flats, houses, etc., etc. So lots of changes going on there. And the other thing, which I think is excellent news, is many people were worried that the statute of limitation in Portugal would end for the Madeleine McCann investigation because it's only for 15 years. Well, it's actually been extended, and it's been extended because from the moment that they made Christian Bruckner our Guido, that extended it. And it's extended for 8 more years for police to collect evidence. And that could be evidence about anybody. That's not just about Christian Bruckner, who has triggered that 8 more year extension, which is excellent, but it could be anybody. My thing has always been the same thing. You've got to go back to stage 1, back to the scene of the crime, the people who were there, that Operation Grange, the British investigation into Madeleine's disappearance ruled out from the very beginning. Absolutely absurd. Obviously, we will always keep you updated with this. I should say that when the German prosecutor was speaking on TV, Kate and Jerry McCann were addressing a crowd. They were at the War Memorial in Rothley, which is where they live and where Madeleine spent her first young years. And Kate read a poem, which was survival can be summed up in 3 words: never give up. That's the heart of it, really, just keep trying. Sometimes you have to get knocked down lower than you have ever been to stand up taller than you ever were. Perseverance is stubbornness. I'm not sure what being knocked down and being and any of those things, what any of those things have to do with a missing child. That sounds more about Kate probably internalizing how she feels. Yeah. So let's move on. Family Sex Show. They've gone under the radar after several shows last weekend at the Egg with it, which is within the Theatre Royal in Bath. And I am concerned. The actions have been extremely troubling, very secretive. Anyway, I've been in communication with the Chief Constable, Sarah Crew's office this week. And I just outlined my real concerns about how this is non-contact sexual abuse. It breaks all manner of safeguarding rules, etc., etc. And they responded by saying, thank you for your recent email to the Chief Constable regarding the Family Sex Show production. We understand there are a number of differing views on the show, with some citing freedom of speech and others citing child safeguarding concerns. Since your conversation with the PCC, working with partners, including senior staff within Bristol and North Somerset Council's Children's Service and the show's producers, the intended content has been reviewed and does not give cause for concern that any criminal offences would be committed by allowing children to see the show. Any children attending would need parental consent. Well, I hit the roof. And I responded by saying, I can only assume that the Family Sex Show has changed beyond all recognition of what they said it was going to be about. So to be clear, please confirm the following: that there was no nudity in the show, that children are not encouraged to touch themselves sexually, that there are no songs or dialogue about masturbation or the clitoris. There are more issues with the Family Sex Show regarding non-contact child abuse, but these are the most obviously problematic ones. Also, as I'm sure you are aware, parental consent does not go so far as to allow parents and guardians to subject children to illegal and inappropriate content. I found it astonishing that a Chief Constable's office was saying, well, if the parents say it's all right, it's all right. No. Finally, I said, I understand the intended content was given the go-ahead after children had seen the invited audience show last Thursday and after they had been testers in 2019 for the developing Family Sex Show. And for me, this has many red flag safeguarding, elements to it. And I'd said to them, as a journalist and broadcaster who spent many years highlighting the sexualization of children, I could not ignore what the police had allowed on their patch. And they were trying to say, well, there are other people who are involved in this. Yes, there were. Absolutely. They're all accountable. Arts Council, Shoreditch Town Hall, anybody who's given some sort of support to the Family Sex Show is culpable for what has taken place. Anyway, the police responded saying, thank you for your further email. We continue to understand the strength of feelings surrounding this issue on both sides of the debate. Obviously not enough. It is not for the police to decide whether such a show should be permitted. Our only intervention would be if criminal acts were suspected, which they were not in this case. The police have no legal basis to prevent such a show going ahead. It is not for the police to comment on specific content of such a show. In this case, because of the concerns raised, our only role was to confirm that no criminal offences would result from the content, and to work with partners to ensure that the appropriate agencies were aware of the show. And it goes on and on and on, and basically justification for the continuation of this. But here's the thing, here's the kicker. Very eagle-eyed people spotted that the BBC were forced to change an article, and they changed an article regarding the family sex show because, and what they did was they deleted the wording, the show was made in consultation with the School of Sexuality Education. Now, this is interesting. So are they now saying that because I've tried to get confirmation of this, and of course, BBC won't give me any confirmation. I can't get hold of the journalist, etc., and tried to talk to the School of Sexuality. So the question now remains is, has the family sex show really gone through these advisors? It's looking increasingly not. So if you know where it currently is, please keep me updated. It scares the life out of me. We know they've gone under the radar. There are very serious safeguarding issues concerned. The police are extremely remiss regarding this. And it just makes me want to tear my hair out, frankly. Yes, Chris, so back to Madeleine McCann, they can pile on the documentaries all they want. Most now don't believe them. Most now know the facts. Zarina says it's a cover-up. I do believe it is actually one of the UK's biggest cover-ups. Now, just to say very quickly, a little bit of Schadenfreude coming your way. Piers Morgan's new show Uncancelled has become unwatched. Rupert Murdoch's Talk TV television channel has lost 80% of its original audience. The first trailer put out for Piers Morgan about Trump was misleading, and people are just absolutely sick of that. And this is about viewer choice now. People are really sick of Morgan. They're sick of his shouty bullying. He was a major pusher of the government COVID narrative. He terrorized people. He fought for medical tyranny against the public. He fought for lockdowns while being an absolute hypocrite himself. He was holidaying. He was at Wembley without masks while hollering at the rest of us to wear them. And Rupert Murdoch betted heavily on this, £3 million to Morgan over 3 years, heavily promoted on buses, in the Sun, on bus shelters, and people have just found it an absolute turnoff. For all their money, all their power and influence, he's now down to only 62k viewers. Rise with BNT and some of the videos that we put out after Rise do more than 62k. We are officially more watched than Rupert Murdoch's new TV channel and Piers Morgan. And the station itself is absolutely bombing. Tom Newton-Dunn, Sun political journalist, his show registered 0 viewers on Tuesday, which doesn't actually mean 0 necessarily, just means that the figure was so low that it didn't register with the official ratings agency, which is the Broadcasters Audience Research Board. Anyway, I personally love that. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. And just one more thing, and that is Global, who own LBC, Capital Radio, etc. They gagged their journalists from talking or asking questions about the accusations regarding Tim Westwood, who is one of their DJs. He has, of course, been accused of serial sexual offences against young black females. And Global have basically gagged their journalists, and that includes people like, I mean, think about who's on LBC, Nick Ferrari, James O'Brien. These people are so sanctimonious. And, you know, I will say what I want to say. Ian Dale, why aren't you asking then about, you know, a man within your midst, Tim Westwood? So that's how media works. It's the same operation that happened at BBC, and we all are sick of it.